West has become an Orwellian nightmare. We thought we had left behind the days when we would imprison or sometimes kill dissidents, but we have not. The West has been fighting a balancing act between freedom of expression and expression control for years. It started with the Magna Carta in 1215, then the Bill of Rights in 1689, followed by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. The world has seen many wars fought over freedom of speech to varying degrees. But nowadays, free speech is seemingly at the weakest it's ever been. The champions of Free Speech USA has a long history of chasing down journalists and whistleblowers, hoping to silence them. From Daniel Ellsberg's leak of the Pentagon Papers in 1971 to Edward Snowden's leaks in 2013, journalists have been threatened, arrested, and in some cases, prosecuted for their articles. In 1971, the New York Times published the Pentagon Papers, which were classified documents about U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, with the permission of Daniel Ellsberg. This was a major event in the history of the freedom of the press. President Richard Nixon tried to stop the publication of the papers by having the New York Times printing press shut down. This was the start of what would become known as the New York Times versus the United States case. In 2013, Edward Snowden leaked documents about extensive spying by the NSA on American citizens and people around the world. Snowden was charged with stealing government property, giving intelligence information to unauthorized people, and leaking classified communications security information. Both these events show the hypocrisy of the West. It proves that the government's claim about the U.S. being a free country is nothing but a plain lie. They are chanting about free speech while spying on their own citizens, shutting down the press and persecuting journalists. But the U.S. is not the only hypocrite here. Recently, French authorities deported a Muslim imam. They accused him of promoting hate speech towards their secularist values. The Muslim imam claimed that he was talking specifically about the Zionists movement in his sermon, and not about Judaism or Jews in general. The French government did not believe his clarification and went on to deport him to Morocco. This was not the only time when France suppressed free speech. French President Emmanuel Macron defended cartoons of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, claiming that they respect freedom of speech. On the other hand, France has clear anti-Semitic hate speech laws in place that make it illegal to show discrimination against Jews. How is disrespecting Muslims freedom of speech but disrespecting Jews not? France has some ambiguity in the way they enforce their laws. Apparently, they have a clear separation in the way they value certain types of speech. This hypocrisy about freedom of speech is not just limited to various governments. People living in the West are equally contributing to it too. We are still stuck in that old cycle of oppression. People have started to silence others by shaming them even if they themselves are not in power. They believe that silencing what they perceive as offensive speech is a way of fighting discrimination and bigotry. The fact of the matter is that although this sounds rational on paper, it is not what is being practiced in real life. In fact, what is occurring at an alarming rate in the West is people stifling open discussions and the exchange of ideas, key elements of a healthy society. People are trying to silence others with outrage and personal attacks simply for them having opposing views. Actors, musicians, sports stars, and other celebrities have always had a huge influence on the public. Celebrities have been using their influence to fight for social awareness issues they subscribe to, such as racism, homophobia, and other forms of discrimination. But increasingly, even celebrities have been attacked by the public for what they say. Social activist and comedian Dave Chappelle has been a target of outrage and silencing ever since his Netflix special show The Closer came out. In the show, he is seen making jokes about many topics. Dave has historically joked about many races and groups of people, however it was his jokes about the trans community that made him the target of outrage. with people criticizing him for transphobia and not being funny. This, in turn, resulted in media articles and segments about his inappropriate and unfunny jokes, trying to cancel him. This should alert you to the fact that there are protected groups who are not allowed to be mocked like the rest of us. Groups where freedom of speech does not apply. This trend of censoring free speech is equally common on social media platforms that were originally created to promote free speech, like Twitter. You see the irony, right? Social media sites, such as YouTube and Twitter, have started to block content, comments, and users for various reasons, including spam, hate speech, and fake news. The problem here is, these social media sites weaponize language against their users and can and often do classify any dissenting or opposing views to the mainstream as hate speech or fake news. This, in turn, has started to affect free speech. YouTube, in particular, is known for its frequent censorship of content creators. Twitter has also been reported to censor tweets and promised to improve its algorithms to reduce fake news. The problem still stands though. They can choose what they want to be fake news and will manipulate and contort language to do this. The algorithms censor things that should be talked about. Many people lose their voices even on social media platforms, and they become subject to the will of corporations. This is all occurring in the West, yet people still believe this only happens in China or the Middle East. The West has been struggling between free speech and the right to silence others. Silencing with violence has been going on for centuries. But modern-day silencing does not require violence. They achieve it with technology, and yet most users are not privy that it has been on the rise as of late, especially when it comes to political issues and protests. What disappoints most is the hypocrisy of the West and those countries like France who all herald free speech but are quick to silence any who do not share their views. We want to buck that trend here, so please share your views with us in the comments. Do you think the West is becoming more Orwellian by the day? Maybe you disagree and think there is no suppression of free speech in the West. Either way, I want to hear your thoughts. So if you liked this video, don't forget to give it a like, maybe consider subscribing and be part of future discussions. And as always, thank you for watching. See you guys next time.